Welcome to Wizards of the Tower.
Roleplay.
In this episode, rolling the dice. DMs versus players. Welcome to Wizards of the Tower.
Roleplay.
In this episode, we're going to be talking about rolling the dice. When should the DM roll the dice versus when the players should roll the dice? Now, in the very old first edition, when I first started playing, the DMs pretty much rolled the dice for everything.
Really?
Yeah.
'Cause I didn't know that. I thought the players rolled.
No. There were DMs that rolled for combat, for searching for traps, for saves, for damage, all your damage, everything else. About the only thing you got to do is when you rolled your damage, the DM would tell you hit, and you got to roll your own damage. And that kind of petered out pretty quickly, because I think that takes a lot away from player interaction.
Sure it does.
You know,
Sure.
letting your players roll for their combat, for their to hits. Because they probably know better than you do, because they've got their character sheet there and add in all their pluses and minuses and whatever else.
Well,
As a GM, that's a lot to take control of. You got your monsters. Now you're doing it for the players.
Well, to think about it this way, if you're a player and someone's rolling your dice for you, you don't have control of your character.
No.
Why are you playing your character then? It's like, you play it. I mean, shit, you're doing a better job, you play it.
Right.
I'm not a DM. I'm a player. Okay? I like to make my own rolls. I do. I just do. If I fudge
your own dice.
If I fudge them, it's my fault, not anybody else's. Now, Delaney will sometimes roll for initiative and things like that, just to keep things going. That's about my limit. I like to look for traps. I like to do combat. I like to do all my own rolling, because that's why I bought all that fancy dice.
Yeah. Yeah, for combat, definitely, I feel that a DM or GM should never roll for combat.
Yeah.
Even if the player, the character, is now under control of a bad guy, you still let them roll their dice. Because like you said, they've got all their pluses and minuses figured in right there. They've got all that information. A DM would have to have, all that information as well.
So are you talking about what if someone is compelled? Or if they're under compulsion to do... Okay.
So I still would allow my players to roll the dice. Because you would know your character better than I do.
Not only that, but the way most people, in our group, don't have paper character sheets. I think we still have one person who does. We all have laptops with electronic character sheets.
Which is controversial in its own right, but it speeds things up, in my opinion.
It is controversial, but let's just keep going with that. It allows them to manipulate their characters to a broader extent by creating boosts and buffs within the programs. So if the GM wants to roll, well then, are they going to pick up that person's laptop and here, let me have your character. I'm going to roll, you're now under compulsion by the evil lich, and you're going to start attacking your buddies. So let me just start rolling. I mean, that doesn't make any sense.
Now you take the player out of it, and he's just gonna. It's like, why am I even here?
Why am I even here? I mean, you go ahead and play then.
Yeah. Now initiative. I actually, in most instances, roll initiative because I have a program that I hit a button and boom, all the initiative is done, and it's pretty good at keeping the initiative consistent and flowing. And it makes it easier, and it speeds combat up a little bit for me.
I think it's fine for DMs, but as a player, I still like to roll for initiative. I do, because I like to be in control of my own character with my own dice rolls. You have to give up a little bit as a player, for the DM to control things and maybe keep things going. Which is fine. Keep the flow going, keep the speed going. That's good. But generally, I would think to most people playing within a game, they would prefer to do their own rolling.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I would agree. I tend to do it because I think it speeds up my combat just a little bit more.
Yeah.
That's the only reason why I do it. And I've got everybody's initiative and monsters and everything, and I've already got the monster in there, and I just boom and hit it, and everything's done, and then I can run down the table. And when I do initiative, I like to do it on a you're up, you're on deck, you're in the hole type of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So that way players can start planning a little bit ahead. I don't always do that, but I try to do that because it helps the players out.
Well, sure, it does. It helps the players out, but it also should help the DM out. Okay? Anecdotally, this is probably one of the most annoying things that happens. You have a player who's not paying attention. You're in the middle of combat. One player throws a fireball, and then the next player is up, and you're like, okay, Jim, what are you going to do? Oh, okay, we're in combat. All right, let me get my book. I want to look up a spell. And you're like, all right, look, have you been asleep? You know, you should have that stuff ready.
Yeah.
Now, true, if you're going to throw a spell and someone throws it before you, that took away your spell. You should always have an alternate choice when you're doing that. Okay, so as a player, it is your responsibility. You know, because the DM allows you to do so much stuff, it is your responsibility to have an alternate plan B. Okay? In case your sword attack doesn't work, what do? Well, okay, I'll pull out my axe. Or I'll back up and get the bow ready. That kind of thing. You should have a plan B. Okay? The responsibility is yours as a player. So if you're gonna be the one who's rolling, you know, and this whole thing is DM versus player, who's gonna be doing the rolling, you can take responsibility for doing your rolls.
Right. Traps. Do you think the players should roll the dice for traps? You think
Yes.
the DM should, or do you think the DM should on an occasion roll for traps?
I think the players should roll for traps. For finding traps.
Now, I would argue that because let's say a player is walking down the hall and they're not checking for traps. Should the DM say, hey, make a roll to check for traps, because now the players know? In that instance, as a DM, he failed. He walks right into it.
Well, conversely, on the other thing, if they're walking down a hall and they're not checking for traps, then when they set that trap off, that's going to come as a hell of a surprise. So then they know after that to check for traps. So, you know, again, it's your responsibility as a player. You're down in a deep, dark dungeon. You're a thief. You better be checking for traps. Otherwise, you send the barbarian out ahead of you, and they just stroll brazenly down the hall, setting off every trap as they go, soaking up XP. You know.
So let's take it off traps, and let's say it's a secret door. And they're walking down the hallway, and they're not checking for secret doors, but they pass the secret door, and the GM, because of the character, who they are, and has the ability, and you say, hey, something looks a little odd over there in that corner.
Okay, that's a gimme. And I'm glad that DMs would do that to players, because if the whole storyline hinges on whether or not they find this secret door, maybe it's about time that the DM kind of helps them out a little bit. Because they may not know. They may not know that there's a secret door in here. They get to the top of the tower and there's nothing, and they're like, what? Where'd everybody go? What's up here? There's nothing up here. Somebody in the players group then should jump up and say, let's check for secret doors. There could be a hidden passageway. But if no one ever does that, then I think the DM should secret door, roll and see whether or not they actually have their abilities enough to find it.
Yeah. See, and I'm under the belief that there are times when a DM should roll for traps and skills, like the perception, because maybe they just weren't paying attention. And it's kind of to help the story along.
It does. That goes with our other episode we did about good GMs versus bad GMs, is how well a good GM will help a story along. To keep the action flowing. Sometimes you have to. This is a little bit off subject, but it's a really good idea. It's a really good concept. We were gonna join a group, and we played a couple times with them. This is back when I first started playing. I read the online synopsis, where basically this party spent an entire game session searching for a secret door on the side of a mountain, and they never found it after 2 or 3 sessions. And I read the synopsis, and it said, yeah, once again, the party couldn't find the secret door into the cave. And I thought to myself, well, they just blew 3 game sessions looking for this stupid secret door. Why doesn't the GM just let them have it? That's where the plot's going. I mean, I wouldn't even show up for the game after that. I'd be like, yeah, I'll go home and play Skyrim, man. At least I can find the doors in that. You know, I mean, come on. Help people out somewhat. So in that sense, yes, DMs should be doing a little rolling, trying to get the party to go on and and follow along on the path. Otherwise, they're never going to get anywhere.
Saves.
Now, I do think that people should be in control of their own saves.
Their own destiny.
Their own destiny. You blow a save, that's on you, not on the DM. You know, you got to save against poison twice a day. If you don't, you become sickened. Well, okay, roll. Oh, I blew it. Oh, it's like, well, you're sickened now. You got sickened, during the gameplay. And, that's your condition. I'm not rolling for you to tell you that you are now sickened. You need to roll for it.
Of course, damage. Rolling your own damage.
Well, yeah, you roll your own damage. Not combat and damage.
Now here's kind of why I'm asking some of this is, let's say you're walking down a hallway, and the GM says, check for traps, and you get a cheater player. We've had cheater players. And they roll the dice and they manipulate it to saying that they found it when they really probably shouldn't have.
Okay.
Or the search, or even the save, because sometimes that's part of the secret.
Yeah.
Is, let's say you're walking down a hallway and there's a poisonous gas that you can't smell. We all know that tunnels and stuff, that's why they carried the canaries.
Sure.
And all of a sudden the canary dies. Well, what if you're walking down there and you don't have the canary?
Exactly.
Let's see. Don't make their save. You're walking down the hallway and you take 12 points of damage. Why? You don't know. You just kind of feel lightheaded.
That I agree with. I don't have a problem with that. That enhances the mystery of the story, and there's nothing wrong with that. I guess in a way, a good GM will know when it's time to roll for someone, and then when to have someone roll for themselves. A good experienced GM will know to do that, and so that's kind of how I put it in there. If you don't have a good experienced GM, then it's going to be problematic for sure. Generally, as a player, I love controlling my own destiny with my dice. But on the other hand, there's been times when good GMs have controlled the destiny of players through rolls, and it's been to the benefit of the players.
Yeah. Now, through all these, I'm a firm believer that players get to roll their own combat. Initiative, I'm kind of on the table with that. I like doing it in my games because I know it can speed the game up.
Yeah.
It speeds it up instead of saying everybody roll initiative and then you got the guy sleeping over there and you're like, hey, roll your okay. He rolls his dice and now you got to go around the table and say, okay.
We've had that.
Anybody roll over 25? Okay. Anybody roll over a 20? Anybody roll over a 15? And now you're as a DM, you're making all this stuff down. Or if you're going around the table, what'd you roll? 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 And you're writing all this down and keeping track of it, and then adding in all the dice rolls for your monsters. Now some DMs under initiative will actually roll the initiative for all the monsters all at once, and all the monsters will act on that one turn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And in my view, when it comes to initiative, when I have this program do it, and it's just a random generator, boom, I hit it and it's all done, it keeps everything in track. And then I can move, if somebody says, I'm delaying, I can move them down in the combat easier.
I don't have a problem with that. And I do like the fact that it speeds up the action.
Yeah. But I, in general, prefer to roll my own initiative when I'm a player.
Yeah.
When I do get to play.
But as a GM, part of your responsibility is to make sure the story flows.
Right,
and that the gameplay is efficient.
Right.
And it doesn't become wasted and sloppy. if you're going around the whole table, writing down everybody's initiative, and then putting everybody in order, then changing, doing it all pen and paper, it can take a long time. You know, it's better, in my opinion, in that sense, to use a program.
Yeah. And then as traps and searches go, you know, once again, if somebody doesn't say they're doing it, but yet they've got that skill, that innate ability, you roll. If they fail, they're going to set off the trap. But if they succeed, you say, well, you notice something a little bit off, you know. So now they know that they should be looking for something, and something has set them off.
See, that's part of the story narration there.
Yeah.
You don't, the player, the really good rogue isn't saying that they're looking for traps. But you know they have a very high skill check for it. Right. And that they basically have a high perception, so they would notice stuff all the time. Having them trip a trap would be, you know, it'd be kind of weird, because then the player would say, well, I mean, I got an 18 for traps. Didn't I spot anything? Well, I don't know. Did you say anything? It's like, well, I'm always looking. So then it becomes an argument.
Yeah.
You know, and okay, you know, you're always looking, fine, sure. I can see that. You know, but the DM has to know, okay, when should I roll for this situation? When shouldn't I? When should I let them bungle into it, or when should I let them actually find the trap?
Rolling a dice to say, yeah, you find something, but you don't know quite how it works, and maybe they still set it off.
Yeah.
We had one of those in a recent trap where the rogue actually found the trap, but they couldn't disarm it because it was interlaced to some part of some other location.
I mean, it was a very complex trap that this rogue had never seen before.
Yeah.
And they couldn't, sure, they could find it, they knew something was up.
But they did eventually bypass it.
They got past it eventually,
yeah,
luckily.
Eventually.
But the thing is it's like you encounter a trap you've never encountered before, what do you do?
Yep. So, along that lines, you know, typically I like to see my players rolling their own dice. There are a few exceptions to the rules. In the old days, like I said, the DM did it all the time. And that just kind of took away the fun. And I think we learned pretty quickly on that the DM shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
You know, because it just took away. Or maybe the DM has bad dice.
Maybe.
So anyway, I think we're going to end this episode of Rolling the Dice, DM versus Players. May all your adventures be epic.
And keep on rolling.
Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, spread the word, and let us know what you think about rolling the dice, the DM versus players, and when a DM should do it and when the players should do it. So, thanks, folks. Have a great one.
Thank you.